You spent an hour on a Python script. 1 hour. It's supposed to pull data from an API and dump it into a spreadsheet. Should take 20 lines of code. But you're not a developer. You're a product manager, or an analyst, or someone who needs this thing to work so you can move on with your actual job. And somewhere in the back of your mind, you know there are AI tools that could write this code for you. The question is, which one? GitHub Copilot costs $10 a month. Cursor costs $20. That's a 50% price difference. So here's the real question. Is Cursor actually 50% better? Or is there a free option that does 90% of what you need? Spoiler, there might be, but it depends entirely on how you code. Today we're cutting through the benchmark wars, the marketing hype, and the Twitter arguments to give you a practical answer. First, let's talk about what's actually changed in the last year. Because AI coding tools in 2026 are genuinely different from what we had in 2024. The big shift? Context windows got massive. The AI doesn't just see the file you're working on anymore. It sees your entire code base. That sounds like a technical detail, but it matters enormously. When the AI understands your whole project, it stops suggesting generic solutions. It starts suggesting code that actually fits. That uses your naming conventions. That calls the functions you already wrote instead of reinventing them. This is where Cursor makes its case. Full code-based context has been their thing from the start. It's why developers pay double. Here's what surprised me in the research. Cursor AI hit a $10 billion valuation this year. Half of Fortune 500 companies now use it. That's not a startup anymore. That's a major enterprise tool. And the Fortune 500 adoption tells you something about where serious money is flowing. User reports suggest Cursor makes developers 30 to 40% faster at writing code. That's not a marginal improvement. That's an entire extra day per week. But here's the thing. That 30 to 40% speed boost, it's for full-time developers working on complex multi-file projects all day. If you're writing one Python script a week, the math changes completely. You're not getting 40% of 40 hours back. You're getting 40% of maybe 2 hours. So let's talk pricing. GitHub Copilot now has 5 tiers. Free gets you 2,000 completions per month. Pro costs $10. Pro Plus is $39. 2,000 completions sounds like a lot until you realize how fast you burn through them. Accept a suggestion? That's a completion. Reject one and ask again? That's another. I did the math. If you code 2 hours a day and accept one suggestion every 30 seconds, you'll hit that 2,000 limit in about a week and a half. For casual coding, that might be fine. For anyone doing more, the free tier becomes a trial, not a solution. Cursor's pricing tells a different story. It's $20 a month. But in June 2025, they switched from 500 fixed responses to usage-based credits. The backlash was immediate. Users calculated they were now getting roughly 225 interactions for the same $20, less than half. And this is where the comparison gets tricky. Because you're not just comparing price per month anymore. You're comparing cost per useful interaction. Here's what nobody tells you, though. There are free options that might be all you need. Gemini Code Assist offers 6,000 requests per day. Continue.dev is fully free and open source, and GitHub Copilot's free tier gives you 2,000 completions monthly at zero cost. So, when should you pay? The answer is code-based understanding. That's the dividing line between tools that help you type faster and tools that actually understand what you're building. Cursor's standout feature is full code-based context. It understands your whole project, not just one file. That makes its suggestions significantly more accurate. Let me give you a concrete example. You're writing a function to process user data. A basic autocomplete might suggest a generic solution from its training data. But Cursor sees that you already have a user validator class in another file. It suggests calling that instead of writing new validation logic. Less code. Fewer bugs. Actually fits your project. Cursor also offers multi-model flexibility. You can switch between GPT, Claude, and Gemini depending on the task. That matters more than most people realize. Different AI models are better at different things. Claude tends to excel at Python and backend work. Copilot has historically been stronger with JavaScript and frontend code. Claude Code is specifically recommended for backend development, Python, Node, Go, because of its ability to navigate large repositories intelligently. So here's the decision framework. If you're writing Python scripts for data analysis or automation, Claude Code might be your best bet for understanding context. If you're building front-end interfaces or working in JavaScript-heavy environments, Copilot's strength in that ecosystem might serve you better. And if you need the best of everything and work across multiple languages and frameworks daily, that's where Cursor's multi-model switching earns its premium. Here's my recommendation if you're just starting out. Don't pay anything yet. Start with GitHub Copilot free and see if 2,000 completions per month covers your actual usage. If you find yourself hitting that limit consistently, you've answered your own question. You code enough that a paid tool might actually save you time. Before paying for Cursor, try their free tier first. The code base understanding is noticeably better on larger projects, but if you're writing standalone scripts, you might not feel the difference. One thing you should try this week: open a project you've already built. Doesn't matter how simple, drop it into whichever tool you're testing. Ask it to add a feature. Watch whether it suggests code that fits your existing patterns, or just throws generic solutions at you. That's your test. Now, there's a controversy we need to address. Some people argue these AI coding tools create technical debt, code that works but nobody actually understands. I've seen this happen. Someone accepts AI suggestions without reading them. The code works. 3 months later, something breaks and nobody knows why. My suggestion: always read what the AI writes before you accept it. Even if you don't understand every line, you should understand the general approach. That's the minimum. There's another angle if you manage a technical team. Understanding which tools your developers use actually matters for code review and onboarding. If half your team uses Cursor and half uses Copilot, they might be writing code in subtly different styles. The AI suggestions they accept shape how they think about problems. This isn't necessarily a problem, but it's something to be aware of. The tools your team uses become part of your engineering culture, whether you planned it that way or not. Looking at the market trajectory, Cursor's growth tells a story. From startup to $10 billion valuation, from early adopters to half the Fortune 500. GitHub Copilot isn't standing still either. Their 5-tier pricing strategy suggests they're trying to capture everyone from hobbyists to enterprise teams. And the open source alternatives keep improving. Continue.dev has an active community. New tools launch every month. The ecosystem is still evolving rapidly. What does this mean for you? Probably that any tool you choose today will be significantly better in a year. The question is, what's worth paying for right now? Here's how I'd think about it. If coding is a side task, something you do occasionally to automate your main work, free tools are probably enough. If you code daily but you're not a developer by title, maybe you're a data analyst or a DevOps engineer, Copilot Pro at $10 is probably your sweet spot. And if you're doing serious development work across multiple files and languages, that's when Cursor's codebase understanding might actually justify the extra $10. Before you subscribe to anything, maximize the free options first. I mentioned Gemini Code Assist, 6,000 requests per day at no cost. That's worth testing. Here's your homework. Spend 30 minutes this week with a free tool on a real project, not a tutorial, something you actually need built. See how far it gets you. If you found this breakdown useful, hit subscribe. We do practical tech tool comparisons like this every week. No hype, just honest assessments of what actually works. Let me give you one more comparison that might help frame this. Think about when you first started using spreadsheets with formulas instead of calculators. At first, you typed formulas you didn't fully understand, some functions that seemed like magic. Eventually, you started to actually understand what they were doing. AI coding tools are similar. At first, you accept suggestions you don't fully understand. Over time, you start recognizing patterns. You learn by osmosis. The tools accelerate that learning, if you let them. They show you solutions you wouldn't have thought of. They expose you to patterns you haven't encountered before. But they can also become a crutch. If you accept every suggestion without thinking, you'll write code without developing the understanding to fix it when it breaks. The sweet spot? Use these tools to move faster, but pause when something surprises you. Ask the AI to explain why it suggested what it did. That's where the learning happens. I want to leave you with one final thought. The debate about whether AI coding tools are worth it usually misses the point. It's not about whether they're worth it in general. It's about whether they're worth it for your specific situation, your projects, your budget, your learning goals. So, is Cursor worth 50% more than Copilot? For some people, absolutely. For others, the free tier of either tool is plenty. The only way to know which category you're in? Try them. On your actual projects, with your actual workflow. The answer isn't in a review, it's in your hands. That's all for today. Go write some code, with or without an AI helping. Either way, you've got this.